Hey guys, how you doing? Daniel Benoit here. Well, I'm here with another tidbit video that I think this topic is going to be very interesting. I've touched base on this several times in the past, mainly throughout my field videos. But we're going to touch directly on this particular subject or topic here: Bigfoot structures or shelters or whatever it may be that we come across in the woods when we're out bigfooting and scouting around. Um, I could speak for myself that when I find a shelter or what appears to be a shelter, it's very exciting. I'm sure it is for a lot of you guys. I see so many people posting what they find in the woods. I do the same thing. I love finding them regardless of who or what made them. So there's one thing I want to touch on, and this is something I covered before, but you ever think about paintball wars? Yeah, a lot of paintball wars, a lot of them are in certain designated areas where there's already shelters and structures already built there, usually out of old wood, plywood, and other material. Well, did you realize, or did you actually even know, that a lot of paintball wars take place out deep in random woods, sometimes national forests? A lot of paintball teams want to go in a remote area or somewhere away from civilization and do their thing. Well, it's true, they do that. Like, for example, these guys here. It's very common for a lot of these paintball war teams to gather together and search out an area, and they'll build these structures from sticks. Okay, they'll usually make wall coverings. Some will actually make shelters that would actually appear or look like a wooden stick-built tent. More like bushcraft. That's another topic we're going to talk about right now. Bushcraft. What is bushcraft? They're shelters made from sticks and limbs that are put together to form a shelter or a covering that will protect you from the elements. This is very common, and this is probably one of the most common structures that a lot of us find. I know I have found them. Yes, a lot of them are bushcraft. I can tell you straight up that they're bushcraft. And I know a lot of you got to say, well, how could you eliminate if Bigfoot did it or did a man do it? Well, if a man did it, you're going to probably see saw blade marks, cut wood, cut edges, etc., etc. No, that's not the case. Gathered sticks and limbs and broken trees are what usually are used in these. Not everybody that goes out in the woods carries a saw with them. I was taught at a young age on how to build teepee structures. Yeah, I got creative. I knew how to build my own shelters and structures and forts. I was a kid. I used to love playing in the woods, building my own little forts. That was my pastime. Today's kids don't know nothing about that. I grew up playing in the outdoors, and I was always in the woods. If I wasn't in the woods playing, I was out in the woods hunting with Dad. But that was my thing, playing in the woods. Yes, I used to love having little war games with my friends and doing army and whatever you want to call it. Some of you could relate to this. A lot of you grew up doing this. That was my time. Yeah, we had video games, but our time on the video games was limited. Mom was always throwing us out the door. Go out and play. I'm sure, again, some of you guys can relate. Well, take a look at the video here. The video that you're watching right now, we're talking about bushcraft. Look at this guy here. Watch him very closely. This guy is building, and well, first of all, he's gathering sticks and branches and limbs and so much more. Watch how he puts this together. Now, a lot of us find these kind of structures. This is just an example. Now, keep in mind, this is just an example. And I'm throwing a lot out there all at once. I talked about the paintball war games where the teens will gather and build up their own shelters and walls. Bushcraft, survivalists, they are famous for doing these. A lot of people practice this. And, there's people that go backpacking. Yeah, you could bring a small backpacking tent, but a lot of people prefer to build their own shelters. I personally have met people in the national forest in my research area that one gentleman in particular, he's a hiker. He explores the woods. And one of the things he told me, he pointed at a very tall top of the ridge where he's working on building a shelter where he can stay there year round. Yes. Are your game wardens or your park rangers going to find it? Very, very unlikely, because people are building these in not accessible areas that where it's hard to get to unless you're in pretty good physical shape. That's something to keep in mind. They're not going to be over close to a roadway. They're not going to be, in somebody's backyard, although you can, such as this teepee structure that you'll see here in a little bit. But families do this with their kids. It's fun. It teaches the kids some some general education on how to put something together. So again, the video you just watched, it's what we find in the woods. We always point at Bigfoot on a lot of our stuff. Bigfoot should always be your last consideration. 99.9999% of the time, it's human-made. You're not going to see cut trees. You're not going to see cut limbs. They're going to be ripped and torn or broke, or whatever was already broken and gathered from the ground. That is your best option. Yeah, for those who plan on going out, you might bring a saw. You might bring whatever tools you need to cut a green, stronger tree. But most of these bushcraft people and people that practice this use what's already on the ground, like I do. Yes, I do that. Hunters will build little ground blinds made out of sticks and trees. They'll mainly build a barrier. I've done it numerous times. So, ladies and gentlemen, you cannot rule out humans. Bigfoot is not likely to be making these. These are done by people.